are in trouble.
I don't care if I'm in trouble. I don't care who gets it anymore, including myself. Because if I have to go to outside agencies to get somebody to hear my story, well, where am I going to go?
You hear me, Serpico? Stay away from
Where am I going to go?
Guys, welcome to a classic film review of Serpico, a 1973 crime drama starring Al Pacino and directed by Sidney Lumet. I mean, those two names alone, you know you're onto a good thing. It's a gritty biography of real-life plainclothes police officer Frank Serpico, who worked in Brooklyn, the Bronx and Manhattan, and refusing to take police bribes, ended up working to expose vice racketeering across the New York Police Department. Now, this is a key movie from the 1970s with a standout performance from between Godfather films Al Pacino and some excellent location photography. Under suspicious circumstances, Serpico was shot in the face while attempting to make a drugs bust, and the film uses that event and its aftermath as a framing device for one of the greatest police movies ever made. Let's take a look. So 1973's Serpico is based on a true story film about an honest New York City police officer dealing with corruption pretty much right across the force, and is set from 1960 to 1972. Serpico, played here by Al Pacino, is a kind of hippie cop who uses some, at the time anyway, outside-the-box methods to blend into his surroundings and carry out his investigations. Now, Serpico soon realises that pretty much every cop he's partnered with or works with is taking protection money from local businesses and crooks, and because he refuses to be involved, is instantly looked upon with suspicion and becomes widely disliked everywhere he goes.
Here, let me give you yours now.
I'm not on.
What do you mean you're not on?
I don't take money, that's the truth.
Where's it been going?
Ask for Bella.
Now, this of course led to the incident in February of 1971 when Serpico was critically wounded while attempting to make a narcotics arrest. Now, for me, there were two main draws to the movie adaptation of Peter Mars's book, Serpico, and the first is, of course, Al Pacino. Now, he's operating here at the top of his game as the titular cop surrounded by corruption. Now, before I talk about his actual performance, I have to mention that Pacino was nominated for the Best Actor Oscar for his work here, but lost out to Jack Lemmon in Save the Tiger. Now, in all honesty, I've never seen that film, and I'm curious how many people have and how it compares, so let me know in the comments, because my first instinct is that Pacino was probably robbed. Now here, though, we see him portray Serpico from fresh-faced new recruit right the way through his undercover career and eventual retirement from the force. And it's a perfect part for Pacino, who can do both quiet and sombre and wide-eyed and manic without really breaking his stride.
Every time I talk to you, Blair, 20 more people know about it. You know that?
Frank, it's safe.
It's safe! With my ass on the line, it's safe,
I got news for you, fella. Your ass is already on.
Well, then that's my business, all right?
You don't trust me, Frank?
I don't trust you!
And watching him gradually approach his wit's end as he can't seem to find an ally on the force or in government office that will help him, even when his bent cop buddies get wind of him talking to internal affairs. Now, Serpico's high principles means he finds it harder and harder to survive in an environment that's rotten to the core.
You know how to handle guys like you. I had to cut your tongue out.
Now remember, Al Pacino was in his early 70s breakout period here. In 5 years, he starred in The Godfather, The Underrated Scarecrow with Gene Hackman, Serpico, The Godfather Part 2, and Dog Day Afternoon. Anyway, his only allies really are his friend Bob Blair, played by Tony Roberts, who tries to connect him with various government officials who are ultimately of no use, and the ill-fated relationships that he has with women, notably Cornelia Sharp's Leslie and Barbara Eda Young's Laurie, who suffers her own emotional turmoil living with a cop whose whole life has been consumed by his troubles at work.
I want to marry you. I want to have children with you.
God damn it! I hate it!
If you hate it so much, why don't you get out?
I don't do!
Now, the other thing that pushes Serpico into greatness is the way Sidney Lumet and cinematographer Arthur J. Ornitz capture the gritty life of New York so well that so much of the movie feels almost like a documentary. This is an early 70s New York that's a world away from the one that exists now, well, in some ways, and gives us glimpses of some truly run-down and dangerous streets and the hoodlums that will inhabit them. And this would make a great double bill with the previous years Across 110th Street or even The French Connection. Both are really great and grimy street-level cop thrillers. So, Sidney Lumet, one of my personal favourite directors, made Serpico between two post-Bond Sean Connery movies, The Anderson Tapes and The Offence. And he was on a little run that included Murder on the Orient Express, Dog Day Afternoon and Network. And Serpico was a moderate success at the box office for him, although not a blockbuster as such. I'm sure that films like American Graffiti and The Exorcist were the big hitters of that year. Also, I had no idea that this existed, but there was a TV series of Serpico that ran for 14 episodes between 1976 and 1977, starring David Burney. NBC eventually axed it and replaced it with Quincy, but I'd love to see it. Now, my only real criticism of Serpico is that the pacing is just slightly misjudged, with the third act feeling in a bit of a rush to tie up all of its loose ends, but it's a minor criticism in what is such a great movie from a decade that bulges at the seams with some of cinema's greatest works. So Pacino plays Serpico not as some overly righteous bore, but as a man of quiet integrity, a guy whose eventual all-consuming frustration ends up sabotaging his own life. Pacino spent weeks with the real Frank Serpico, honing his performance. A guy who, away from the silver screen's eventual testimonies, would lead to a complete overhaul in the police department. And considering Serpico testified in December 1971 and this movie debuted in the December of 1973, filming on the project began 1 year after Serpico resigned from the New York City Police Department, so it was a quick turnaround, with the issue being still very fresh in the minds of all involved. Now, Sidney Lumet would make a spiritual successor to this film with his 1981 police corruption movie Prince of the City, starring Treat Williams, which is a lot lesser known, but I'd absolutely recommend you watch it if you can. So 1973, Serpico is a tragic tale. A guy who gets his dream job but realises it exists on a foundation of greed, lies and corruption. The 70s were a goldmine for gritty street-level cops and crime movies like this, and this is up there with some of the very best. Go check it out.
Guess who got shot? Serpico.
Think a cop did it?
I know 6 cops said they'd like to.